everyone, and welcome to one more episode of What If You Live to Be 100. On this episode, we have a guest, my dear friend Rajesh Gangwani. Rajesh has been an advertising and branding professional for a long time, 25 plus years. But a few years back, he decided to move out of the advertising industry completely and pursue a different space, a different field. And he's now an eminent executive and leadership coach. I mean, he's trained for it. He has, spent a fair amount of time actually getting the right training and credentials, and he coaches a large number of people for the life stage. So there's a very interesting perspective because now as he works closely with people and figures their life, what comes out is essentially about for all of them is to figure their purpose in life, right? It's one of the integral part of coaching, I would believe. And I mean, he's the one who is going to tell us more. But yes, coming back to the subject, as some of you who have been listening to this series, previous episodes, you might know that when I'm talking about this phase of life, which is the 50 to 65 years old point of time, roughly, there are multiple facets that one needs to, you know, kind of take charge of or figure in life. There is money, there's health, there is relationships, etc. But one of the most significant ones, as far as I'm concerned, is around figuring purpose, right? And the reason I feel it's most significant is that think about it this way that the life so far, right? You have spent your maybe first 20 years getting education and ticking the boxes of school, college, postgrad, whatever it is. And then you got into work life, created a career, you created some you know, capital building happening. Simultaneously, maybe you got into the family way, you got married, you got kids, you've been busy with parenting. So those were the very set sort of tasks or asks of life in a sense, and you finish that. By the time you're 50, 55, 60, you're more or less done with it. And then you discover, thanks to longevity, that you have another 30 odd years ahead of you. But you're already done with the big tasks which life gives you or you're supposed to take care. So what now? And that's what requires to figure the purpose. And that is one of the typical, I would say, challenges or blind spots for people at this age. And it's so important that we believe that it would require an expertise of somebody who's living it through this coaching activity, working with people, as well as, of course, the advertising background, because there was so much of consumer understanding, which is part of advertising field, that Rajesh is absolutely the perfect person to give us some viewpoints, some insights on this very important subject. So with this rather long introduction, let me hand it first to Rajesh to give some opening thoughts around this idea of purpose, right?
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for inviting me to this platform. And we've had informal conversations
Yes,
on and off
exactly.
on this subject. So I'm happy to come and chat with you on this subject today. Um, you mentioned about so what now, and I think that's such an important question. And if I go back in life, even before I started, in just at the cusp of my finishing my engineering. So, believe it or not, people laugh when I say that I started life as a chemical engineer. And my first job was in a petroleum company. So, around 1.5 years into this job, I had this moment of realization that my life is going in completely the wrong direction. This is not what I want to do. And it may seem like very strange because I was very young then. You know, I had not probably even heard the word purpose, but something within me told me that this is not what is meant for me. I've just drifted into it because if you remember those days, if you were reasonably good in studies, you only had two options.
Yeah.
Either you ended up getting into engineering or medicine,
Right.
or if you're super bright, you would go and do civil services.
Right.
Um, so I became a chemical engineer. I got into this job, and like I said, I had a complete sort of uh, blank out space one day while I was sitting wearing my blue overalls and moving in the refinery, and I said, "ये कहाँ आ गए हम?" Literally, where have I come? This doesn't look like the kind of place I would like to spend the rest of my life in.
Right.
And then I spoke around to people, and then I figured out that what I loved was, and I would read this magazine called A&M. If you
Mm.
remember those days, there was a magazine
Yeah.
called Advertising and Marketing.
Mm.
I would buy all copies. I would highlight things. I would love leadership quotes. And I said, this somewhere seems like a nice place to be. This whole business of brands, advertising, communication. And then I got into an MBA, and that was led me. And advertising was my first job. I mean, that was the first interview I ever did, and I got selected,
Oh.
and I joined what was called Hindustan Thompson Associates
Mhm.
then. And the whole journey, like you said,
Wow.
25 years plus, the
Right.
whole love affair with advertising,
Right.
building brands. So if you ask me then, and I was reflecting while you were doing the introduction, that was my purpose. I
Right.
mean, for me, that was it.
Right.
I had decided to make a conscious move from what I had studied to what I really wanted to be.
Yeah.
And this whole literally this world opened up for me about brands. I would read all interesting stories about brands and Virgin and all those big guys, Steve Jobs, and it was fascinating for me.
Right.
And what was really fascinating was how through the power of communication you could influence people's decisions.
Right.
You could make them do things. You can change their attitudes. You can make them buy.
Mm.
It was all very good, and it went on. What is funny is those days I would never read a self-help book. Now my library is full of all kinds of self-help
Right.
books because what I do today is all about that. But I would not even like reading those.
Yeah.
For me, it was more about reading about case studies and look at examples of people who are doing some great work in building brands. And something changed, and that's what I think. As an opening remark, I would say purpose is not static. People think that you're born with a purpose,
Yeah.
and everything is so crystal clear.
Yeah.
I think things evolve,
Right.
and something that I resonate with a lot, even now at this stage of my life, is that you don't find purpose. Purpose finds you.
Wow. Wow.
Uh,
That's very interesting.
uh,
Yeah.
I had no idea when I did my passed out of college and did chemical engineering that I would be actually getting into the world of brands and advertising.
True.
It found me,
Yes.
and when I made the other big transition in my life when I left advertising uh, and to get into this whole space of coaching, it came my way.
Right.
There was no crystal clear 100% clarity. I knew what I didn't want to do,
Right.
but what I wanted to do actually evolved.
Wow. Okay.
So I would say, I think one has to trust that there's something unfolding,
Mm-hmm.
and wait for that thing to really blossom and be
Right.
open to receiving what
Wow.
is unfolding.
Wow. Very, very interesting. I think the significant line I hear is that you don't necessarily find your purpose finds you. It's amazing. It's like you get your calling. You're doing a bunch of things, and the one which completely relates to you, you say, oh, this is really good. Is probably the thing. A long back I had read this very small and simple definition of what success or happiness is. One line, like I can't get simpler than this. It says, happiness is living the life you want to live.
Right.
Like a very short sentence. Sometimes people, write books about happiness and all. Here it was like
Yeah.
one sentence which explained it all. But then, from those days, and I've heard this many, many years back, and it kind of stayed with me. And the challenge I figured is that you don't even know what's the life you want to live. So
Mm.
happiness is living the life you want to live. But most times, if you ask somebody that articulate that, what is the kind of life you want to live,
Mm.
it's very hard,
Mm.
and it's actually boils down to the same thing of figuring the purpose.
Yeah.
Now, what I can tell you about you is that it is very nice that very early in your work career
Mm.
you could figure that what you were doing was not something you enjoyed, and
Mm.
then you found something which you did.
Mm.
Most people, or many people, carry on with life and
Yeah.
work life especially for the need. I mean, you need to bring money home to run your family, and it's not necessarily that everybody is so super thrilled about doing what they're doing. So I would say is that one is that you were clear and you made the shift, and maybe also fortunate to get the right breaks and the right kind of direction, whether it was the magazines which you had access to and which you like. So
Mm.
so that was then, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, the journey to finding that next shift, which is into the area of coaching. How did that happen? Like you do mention that it came to you, but What was it like? I mean, like, because that's more identifiable relatively from the age that we
Sure,
are talking about
sure.
today.
Yeah.
So after a long, successful career
Mm.
in advertising, you thought it was something, you want to do something else, and then it somewhere at some point led you to what you're doing now. How did
Yeah.
that happen?
You know, it's something triggered when you mentioned about this whole happiness part, right? Of the quote that you shared. And recently I saw a video of the NVIDIA chairman talking about happiness. He said, I don't believe that people are necessarily happy when they, every day is, you make this whole thing of you're driven by passion and every day you want to race to work. He said, there are days when I'm not happy at
Yeah.
all. It's tough, it's struggle. But yes, there's something beyond. It's not just the end point is always about happiness. It's about saying, yes, there's something that I'm taking a certain commitment to.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there will be tough days. It's about really showing up every day, being resilient, and not necessarily saying, wow, it was the happiest day in my life.
Right.
That's unreal, he said.
True. True.
So, I mean, I thought it made sense because we all make this whole in between, there was passion.
Mm.
What is your passion project? And a lot
Mm.
of people said, but I'm still struggling to find what is my passion. So,
Yeah,
some things I think
that's true.
evolve, and one has to have a slightly broader sense of, am I really on the right path?
Mm.
So, coming back to this question about moving from advertising, again, it was I was working, I mean, it was a journey. I don't think it happened, and I'll tell you exactly. I still remember what was that one point that I reached where it became a, I wouldn't call it a crisis, but it was a moment of a deep sense of disconnect with what I was doing. Um, but the process had started in my mind even after I turned 50, and that is typically, there's something about these
Yeah,
milestone
yeah,
dates, ages. There was something stirring within me
yeah.
that I need to do more, need to
Mm.
do more to know myself.
Mm.
In all this years of going after roti, kapda, or makan, and we are culturally
Yes.
conditioned, and I come from a middle class background, right? My father was in the railways. I was the first person in the family who was had moved into a professionally qualified space as an engineer. Um, I had stepped out. I was so happy in my hometown, Nagpur. For me, moving to Bombay was a big thing. So a lot of cultural conditioning that first you need to take care of your
Mm.
requirements. So my entire journey was about being a dedicated worker,
Mm.
making sure that I got a house, I got a car eventually. सब कुछ ठीक था. बच्चों को अच्छी education
Yeah.
देना है. So in all this, you are doing what you are supposed to do. You are
Right.
not even thinking of words like purpose. This is what you have to do. You have
Right.
to be a good worker, hard worker,
Mm.
do what you like. And
Yeah.
I really enjoyed what I was doing for all these years. But something happened in those that period when I said I'd crossed 50 and maybe a little more 2 years later. There was a big pitch that we won. It was a hard fought pitch, many agencies, and we won it.
Mm.
And there was obviously celebration. You know how it is. There's a
Yeah.
teamwork, and everybody's happy. And I went to my room, and I was feeling completely empty.
Oh.
I was feeling, I said, what's wrong? What's going on? What's wrong with me? And why am I not happy? I
Mm.
mean, this is a pitch that and during the course, I was fully like focused ki jeetna hi hai.
Mm.
Sabke saath karna hai, kaam karna hai. But you are leaving drained out. And
Yeah.
is this what it is?
Right.
And I said, something is not right now because
Mm.
I should be feeling happy, right?
Right.
This is something that we all dream of, that we
Mm.
went in and defeated the top agencies in the country. We won this
Yeah.
big piece of business. But on the other hand, I'm just feeling so low.
Wow.
And then this whole journey became much more intense.
Mm-hmm.
Every day would be about, there's something missing. There's a piece somewhere that I'm not able to put in this puzzle.
Right.
Kuch
Right.
to missing hai.
Right.
And 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 somewhere the answer came to me that what do I really enjoy doing now? In
Mm.
the last few years, even in advertising, what was I really enjoying? The parts of the business that I really enjoyed.
Mm.
The parts of the business that I really enjoyed was when I was sitting talking to people about their growth.
Mm.
Those feedback, my performance appraisal discussions would go long with people.
Okay.
I would be really interested in where they were, how were they
Right.
moving
Right. Right.
forward. Informally, I was mentoring a lot of people, and I said, if there's one element of my job today that I find a lot of joy is in this part.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much of the creativity. You are there because you love the creative vibe around. But if you ask me, pin me down and say what part of your job you truly enjoy, it's
Mm.
to do with people development.
Right. Right.
And somewhere that thought was born in my head that if I had to choose something going forward, it would be in the space of developing
Right.
people and seeing how I can help them grow to their full potential.
Okay.
That I think was probably the starting point.
Okay. Very interesting. So, you know, it's a really good point. And, when you think about your own case, uh, the so-called purpose may not just come like that, and it,
Yeah.
it, it won't come with a label on it
Yeah,
saying
like
it's
a
purpose.
super saying purpose alert, purpose flashing.
Yes, it doesn't come. But to find the cue, like Rajesh did that, the most sort of satisfying part of his work in an advertising agency at that stage. I mean, I suppose in the early years, creativity also would
Yeah,
have been
was the
wing,
one.
was
Yeah.
the one. But then this is what it was, and that somewhere led to a deeper question that, like, how can this become something I do more? And it kind of, in a sense, led him to what he's doing now, which is
Yeah.
coaching, right?
Yes.
So look for those cues if it's something which you are looking at. What is it that you really enjoy? And then figure that, is there something I can do with that part, that piece of what I like, as an ongoing, like a bigger thing in life, right? So that's a good takeaway for that. But the other thing I want to look at this point, right? So when we both, so definitely advertising and branding, etc., what you spend time with was as much something you like, but it was also kind of a, you can say it was where you earned money and build your life. And I mean, even in coaching now, of course, you're doing it as a professional, and you're obviously making money out of it. But is is purpose always connected to something which has a monetary angle to it? And I would assume that it's not always that.
Hmm.
So when we look for purpose, could we come up with something which may not have a money issue? And, like, when would we sense something? Would you have it? It may not be for you or me at this point, but how would you think? Because I don't want the viewers or listeners to think that, oh, I need to find the next thing where I make money. It's not necessarily so, right?
Hmm. That's a very powerful question, Sanjay. And I think there is no again easy answers here. To each his own. And you being a serial entrepreneur yourself, your sense of purpose will be what could be the next wave I'm riding on, or what could be the new thing. The KFC story we all know. At the age of 60, the man decides to say, "I cannot start
Right,
a new
right,
enterprise," and makes a big success out of
right.
it. And there's clearly a big monetary part to it.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any black and white to say that is it driven out of. It could be driven by the sense of adventure to start something, and money happens. But yes, I am in the business of things, and I'll talk about it in a while about coaching and the business side of it. But one of the ways to even define purpose is, what would you do if you are not getting paid for it? This is often the question that is confronted people. Ki, if money was not the motivation, right? Would you still go ahead and do this?
Yeah.
And that perhaps is an answer to the question you raised.
Correct.
If it is truly something so strong, you would still do that.
Right.
Because what it is giving you is beyond what um, financial rewards would do. It's really something that is touching you at the heart of it.
Right.
That this is what I want to do because um, this matters to me a lot.
Yes.
Like I'll give you an example. And transition to this was not the easiest, and I think a lot of people you may have spoken to, when you make a life-changing decision of moving away from what you were and disconnecting from what, like I did, it may seem on paper that everything is very good, but it is a big transition in life. And I learned a lot of my lessons from that transition. In the early days when I left, everybody was telling me, but you should do something that is allied to your profession, right? You've been working on brands, you could be a brand consultant. You may not want to do advertising, but you could become a brand consultant. You could do other things. There were so many things related to what you were. And something told me that I want to do a clean break. I want to do something which I've not explored before. I've spent 30 years of my life doing the same thing. I want to see what does the world have to offer to me beyond what I already know. So that made it a little tough for me initially. And I would go and meet lots of people. And typically the conversation would end with, what are you talking about teaching and coaching and other things? Why don't you just come and become the sales head for us? So many coaching companies were saying, why don't you become a business head and go and get business for us? And most conversations would end that way. Arey, usme paisa nahi hai. Why do you want to become a coach or a trainer? How much will you earn? But if you bid, you'll have a share of profits. And to your point, those were good conversations to have. And it also gave me a realization that perhaps the cherry was on the other side. If I were to now become a business head for some of these companies and got them clients for their business, I would be in a better space. The tough call to take at that point was, but what do I want to do? And every time the answer would come to me, I want to um, not do the business side. I want to do the personal development side. That's what I got into it in the first place, you know. And so, yeah, there was a financial compensation. I had to take some hard calls to say, would it be the same level as what I was earning? And the answer was no, it would not. And that got some time to get my head around it. And then there was a conviction. I would keep getting the conviction, no, I just want to do what I want to do. I'm getting clearer. So, like I said, I did a train the trainer program, Sanjay. I forgot to mention, when I was towards the end of my career in advertising, I did a train the trainer program just to get myself prepared. So I was warming myself up to see whether my initial hunch was it just a figment of my fancy or something that caught me. I realized the more I spent time with diverse set of people who all were learning to become trainers and facilitators, and I find resonance there. So I said my initial hypothesis is good. This is really what I love and enjoy doing. And it was very funny because I was probably one of the most corporatish type people there. There were housewives there.
Nice.
There were people from artists there. There was SME kind of people there. I was in a diversity, diverse. There was in fact a magician there also, a magician who wanted to be a trainer and a motivational speaker. So I love this world that I was not only in corporate people, though I used to, they always used to look up to me and say he's from the corporate. But I said, this seems like a nice place because now I'm seeing a certain diversity that I've not experienced.
Right.
But yeah, coming back to the point, the transition was challenging. There was an element about, is this what I would do if money were to be removed from the equation? And that answer I had.
Interesting. Good. So when you know, I mean, just to comment on this is that whenever we introduce ourselves to some new person or somebody introduces us, unfortunately, or like I say unfortunately, because I feel there has to be a better way, but otherwise most of the time we get introduced by our designation or company or something, and in that sense our identity is too tied up to that thing.
Absolutely.
Whereas actually, all of us are very interesting human beings with some different aspects of life,
Right.
which may make for a better introduction.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's a very different identity related thing. But I mean, in context to what you just said, because okay, what am I doing to earn money is how I get introduced. I'm a head of Mumbai office of JWT, or I'm an executive leadership coach. But if I say that, I am a person who loves the arts and, goes and, visits museums and admires art or something, or I'm a trekker, why can't that be a good identity of sorts, right? But I think it's a little more philosophical, so we'll not go too deep into that. But coming back to this point, right? So when I have been meeting people, especially in this phase of my life in terms of creating this content here and all, and trying to find out how people are looking at purpose, I have seen, especially at this age, uh, three different kind of areas where people seem to find the right connect and make it become purpose. And one is continues to have a professional connect. Like in your case, the profession shifted, but it's still a certain profession where you continue to have some context to the profession, and whether it's consulting, whether it's going and teaching in a college the same subject, because you still stay close to your space of your in expertise or whatever. The other is when people find a good vent to pursue a passion, and so maybe all your life you have been an amateur singer, or always wanted to pursue singing but never found the time because roti kapda makan took priority and didn't get enough time. But now you say, okay, now I have some time, and you get a teacher and you kind of learn, and the whole focus is on just singing better. It's not about going and performing on stage and winning Indian Idol or anything like that, right? It's just you find satisfaction, and that's a great driver because every day morning you want to do your own riyaz.
Yeah, you want to do your riyaz and you want to become better. Yeah.
And third, I find is sometimes some people find a good connect in pursuing social causes of some kind, right? And they seem to be able to devote the complete life to it, and they find satisfaction in making a difference wherever it may be, whether it's difference to street children for education, or for cancer awareness, or cancer patient, or whatever it is that
Yes.
appeals to them.
Yes.
And somewhere I found that if one of these three, one zeroes in and figures that this is for me, they found. So like the latter two particularly are not so commercial involved, like we were talking earlier,
Hmm.
and yet it has become interesting pursuit of purpose, because this is probably the stage where money may not be that big of a need. See,
Hmm.
if you have a need, somebody has come to a point of time in life and he's still not, he doesn't have adequate retirement corpus or something, you can't help it. You have to find some place to continue to earn money.
Hmm.
And some others may not have that as an issue. So then you want to do something which really gives you that drive. Any thoughts on, like, I've found these three as the key areas where people seem to figure a certain next thing, and devote time, energy, and mind.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of very powerful exploration to do. Yeah, I think for some people, for me, it was a profession. It was something profession plus beyond.
Mm.
I think there were there were more things than just the fact that it was another job for me. As I've realized, I feel much more closer to it now, because I feel that I'm doing something which is benefiting people. And sometimes when you get validation, when you realize the kind of difference that you make to people, um, and they write back to you and say that you've changed the way I was looking at things, and now I'm feeling far more confident about what I am. Um, I have a sense of purpose in my own life. Sometimes people say those things, right?
Yeah.
You feel that you've made a real tangible difference, and it goes beyond this whole standard metrics of success.
Yeah.
So to me, it's work, but work with a lot of meaning attached to it. Not that what I was doing for 25 years did not have meaning. It had a lot of meaning then, but it's far more fulfilling and rewarding for me at this stage.
Correct.
And I wouldn't trade anything to go back for this to go back and do what I was doing earlier. So, but yeah, I think this point about the three buckets that you spoke about, that work related, it could be pure passion. I know, for instance, one of my ex clients, one of my most loved clients, was the CEO of a company that I worked with, the denim company. Today, I find that he's on social media doing a lot of. He wants to start his own YouTube channel.
Okay.
And we always knew when we were working with him that he was fond of music, but today he's out there, he's putting new stuff there.
Wow.
I don't know what right now, whether he wants to do more with that, but I know that there's an expression of something latent,
Right.
really blooming now.
Nice.
Same age as mine, but and there's a lot of pride and there's a lot of joy, and for me those words are important.
Yeah.
Even now for myself,
Right.
what can I do that gives me joy? What can I do that gives me ease in life? That I'm not struggling, that resistance is gone, that barrier, that some people call it hustle, the joy of hustle. Sometimes hustle can also be struggle.
Right.
So I want to live a life of joy, greater ease, and greater sense of significance, that I'm making something, some significant contribution, and one can talk about what does that really mean. But for me, these things are important. So when I see somebody doing that and creating a YouTube channel and saying that, and he makes fun of it on the thing that, even if 5 people see my music, it's okay, but I'm just doing it for the love of it. And he's an R.D. Burman fan.
Okay.
So he plays all the R.D. Burman tracks. So lots of happiness there, evidently, in what he was doing for somebody who's had a very, very successful professional career. The third part you said is the one that I think is still evolving, about giving back.
Yeah.
And I feel it's stirring within me. If you ask me my purpose, and I think somewhere I feel I will move into that direction. Okay. I feel that life is incomplete if you are only focused on yourself.
Right.
And it hits you, and you say that, yeah, okay, I can enjoy, I can travel, I can have fun, I've managed my money well to live a good quality of life. How long can you keep traveling in a year? How long can you keep binging on Netflix? And there is a point where you say, what is the meaning that I'm doing? And that meaning cannot be inner focused. The meaning is always about what difference am I making to the outside world. Right. And I think somewhere that piece is also, now people, I think, are making those choices. I'll tell you the one word that comes to my mind as I'm speaking to you about conscious decision making. I
Right.
think when you reach that stage of 50,
Yeah.
you start becoming more conscious of every aspect of your life,
Yes.
even to the extent of what are the friends that I want to be surrounded with.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is truly important for I know, for instance, family has always been my bedrock.
Mm.
It has given me strength. It has given me a solid platform. This is what my world is like.
Yeah.
I am the most authentic when I'm with my family members.
Right.
Um,
Nice.
the last few years, I have been around when my father. Uh, literally, I saw my father taking his last breath in front of me.
Wow.
I was there when he needed me.
Mm.
I'm there when my mom needs me, and that gives me enormous amount of purpose in life.
Nice.
That the people who were there for us when we were growing up, I'm there for them when they need me.
Fantastic.
That's an important aspect of my
Yes.
life.
Absolutely.
Uh, Choosing friends that I really am, I am myself. I really relish that company. I don't need a big network. So
Yeah.
networking to meet more and more people and add more people to my life.
Yeah.
If they really add richness to my
Yeah.
experience, then I'm happy to bring them in my
Correct.
life. Otherwise, I make a conscious choice. So
Absolutely.
I think at this stage of our lives, Sanjay, being more conscious.
Yeah.
You're not being antisocial or something. You're saying, look, any decision that I take, I'm consciously taking that.
Yes.
Whether I decide to now be more frugal in my living, or I don't want to live in a massive house, I want to live because I feel that this aspect of minimalism appeals to me.
Right.
I'm making a conscious choice that way. I know a couple in another group who have decided to go off the grid, live in a small place, and highly successful, by the way, corporates, both husband and wife.
Mm.
They're living a life where they say that our monthly expense is 10,000 rupees.
Wow.
They don't use electricity in the night. They just highly brilliant people, but they made a conscious choice.
Amazing.
They don't want to disturb the environment.
Right. Right.
They make everything in their life is environment friendly, and they're going around talking about it, spreading. We used to see if there are more like-minded people. It's a
Yeah.
very extreme choice.
Yeah.
Very few people
Right.
at the
Right.
top of their careers are now
Yeah.
saying 10,000 rupees a month we
Yeah.
spend on the living. We
Right.
cook in the lakdi ka saman and all.
Right.
So yeah, I think those three buckets, I think you have rightly identified. I can't
Yeah.
think of, yeah, these are the things. One has got a social angle to it.
Mm.
One has got this passion. This is my, people say my
Yeah.
passion project.
Yeah.
And then the other one, of course, you said is about work related. I want to work. There was an advertising line, you remember, Sanjay, about मैं जॉब से रिटायर हुआ हूँ, लाइफ से नहीं.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and the value of that line now hits me to say you are always engaged with life.
Yeah.
काम का definition बदल गया है. How you define work has changed, but your
Right.
engagement with life is more important.
True.
Not the way and my identity, like you rightly said, for 30 years of my life was about my work.
Yes.
I defined myself as ex-JWT, whatever the names were, Hindustan Thompson, J. Walter Thompson, JWT. It
Yeah.
was always about, to the extent, on a funny note to tell you, it's embarrassing,
Mm.
but I did not change my LinkedIn designation. Even after 3 years of leaving my job, I was hanging on to that identity of managing partner, blah,
Yes.
blah, because it gave me some credibility to the world that
Yeah.
who is this person who's now.
Absolutely.
And it took me a lot of courage one day to say, all is over. Now I'm
Right.
executive coach. I have now shed my
Yeah.
other garb, and now I'm fully into this.
Right. No, what you say is true for so many. So I mean, I'm glad you're articulating it, because I think many of us have gone through the same thing of, sort of hanging on to those identifiable connects and all that, so people know, oh, I'm still that, and etc. So and that retirement line. I mean, you can take advertising out of a person, but no, sorry, you can get out of advertising,
It
but
had
you
to
can't
come
take
back in
advertising.
some
It
form.
has to, so you can be sure of some nice copy lines, when you're speaking to an advertising person. So it had to happen. But just to give a perspective to, let's say, because you brought up mine just as a part of the conversation that we're having, that so for me, you mentioned about sort of being serial entrepreneur of sorts, but it definitely, entrepreneurship is a secondary part. I mean, somewhere this subject that now somehow I have found passion about is about, as I've met people of my age, my friends, my classmates, and I realize that all of us are going through a certain interesting transition, and a lot of times we are not in full control of, next few years, and one thing leading to another, and me going deeper into conversation and coming up with, say, this piece of content or the event activity that I'm going to be doing in the form of Ananta Quest has come about as a consequence. It didn't start that, oh, I want to do my next venture. What should I do about? So
Hmm.
it's also come. The drive is that this phase of life needs attention, and if I can do my bit in giving people and myself direction,
Yeah.
that's the thing which is actually motivating me, just to give say
Hmm.
that. But coming back to a slightly serious tone here is that I have seen that when life forces you to need to find the next thing, in the
Hmm.
sense,
Hmm.
let's say you have retired, that because your company had a rule of 60 years, and now that designation is gone,
Yeah.
may or may not have been out of choice, or some such situation that is now okay, there is a certain emptiness of what you used to do,
Hmm.
and you need to fill it. Not finding that answer in a reasonable time, and maybe just going through life a little aimlessly. I have seen people going through little harsh sort of mental health situation, whether it's depression. Sometimes
Yeah.
it also comes at a point of time when life becomes a little lonelier,
Yes.
because maybe you were working in one city with a lot of network and
Yeah.
circle, and then you came back home and you've not built that much of a circle here in your own hometown. You had kids all your life, but now they've moved on, they've gone and gone to a different city or a different country, and now it's just you and your spouse, for example. Worst case, god forbid, you're single or you lost your spouse, it's even worse. So there
Yes.
is one side, there is a certain emptiness, certain question mark as to what next. Maybe you tried to get another job, and it's not easy.
Hmm.
50, 55, 60s,
Hmm.
definitely not very easy to get a job.
Right.
So are there, like, really, like, if you can focus, it's a little serious as a subject, but moving on, if you downside of not coming, getting that purpose for a while, is there a risk of getting into this sort of mental health challenges and other things? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's very important. This is a really, really pertinent subject. And I think if I trace back to what it is, we are not, reflection about where we are is not something that we do often. I think the pace at which life moves today, and especially now, with disruption becoming the is a normal part of our life. There's so much change going on, and you're right. Lots of people, jobs itself now are becoming like, it's not a thing that you will end life at 60 with a full-time job. I mean, people start down today, or people are getting prepared to the reality that even around 40, as I'm approaching 50, I need to keep my options open. And gone are the days of one job, one sector, one industry. I think we are talking about multiple avenues. Who says that you have to be doing only one thing?
right.
You could be doing three or four things. You're just protecting yourselves and building cushions. So yeah, I find one thing that, and as I coach even senior leaders today, one thing that keeps coming about, we are not spending enough time being aware of who we are and what we really want out of life. We're just so caught up in the whole pace of life, the speed at which things move doesn't give you time to sit back and relax. And that catches up later to say, but where am I? Where am I headed? What I also do in many coaching engagements, the first session typically start with what is called as the wheel of life. So while people may come with a specific work-related issue, and I do a lot of work-oriented coaching, but I often tell them that work and life is much bigger than just the work. So then you start doing all the dimensions that matter in your life, starting with health, which is so important.
Yeah.
If health is not there, everything else becomes meaningless.
Correct.
So health, wealth, passion, like you said, what you want to do, giving back, and just take this wheel and put down all things that matter to you. And on that scale of 0 to 10, put down where you think you are.
Right.
And where do you want to be, more importantly. And that opens up this whole thing that I thought my life was only about this much. But actually, I love doing this. I have this, I have got this, but I have not thought about it.
Right.
So that awareness piece, and for me also, when I made that transition, it was that awareness about what do I really want now? Where am I now? And I can tell you that you spoke about um, mental challenges. Yeah, there were times when I would sit in front of my laptop and I'd say, look, here is this. I was sitting in a buzzing office with some 200 people in the office, and there was a secretary managing my life, and I'm here. and I just need, sometimes I would just want to pick up the phone and speak to somebody to get some intellectually stimulating conversation.
Right.
I was not used to being alone,
Yeah.
and then being lonely and being alone, they're two different things. But being by yourself, um, it took some time to get used to this new rhythm of life,
Right.
where you would get up in the morning and suddenly you had a lot of hours in a day. What
Mm.
do you do with those hours?
Yeah.
How do you not? How do you allow not to fritter away that? Sometimes it started with saying, "Okay, I'm listless. I'm just lying down. I'm watching TV." You go through that stage and you go through that piece of loneliness, and you find your own equilibrium
Mm.
in this entire thing. So I would say one of the ways to counter that is to get the sense of awareness about your life.
Mm.
It seems like a very big word, but I think it just sometimes there are people who can help you, whether whoever you want to talk to. There are many people to come and say, what do I really want? And to be really listening to what is going. Sometimes in this thing, you don't listen to your inner voice. You will get signals. If you spend time with yourself, why do people go retreats now?
Mm.
Why do people do Vipassana?
Mm.
Why do people sit in silence? Because they can shut out the noise and listen within to say, Andar kya chal raha hai?
True.
What is really wanting to come out, but I've been shutting it out or running away from it. There's something telling me.
Yeah.
The world has the universe has a way to give you signals
Mm.
that this is what you really be.
Right.
This is what really appeals to you. And then, for me, the other thing was courage.
Mm.
That courage to accept what is coming up and be ready for it. It was not an easy decision. It needs courage to take that call. I still remember on a very personal note, I was at Golden Temple in Amritsar, and that was the time when I was in this whole space of where do I want to go? Is this the right space? And I sat there and I closed my eyes, sitting in front of that podium, and I was sitting and said, and the words that came to me was three things. The word that came to me was clarity, courage, and compassion. And somewhere I said, this is what God or universe or the higher powers is telling me. I need clarity, and I need courage to do this, and I need compassion, because that is what I think is what I am all about.
Right.
So some of those things we need to go through that tough journey of coming closer to the truth and finding what your inner truth is, and then moving along that path.
No, this is really very interesting. I think there's so much useful stuff that I picked up in this last bit that Rajesh talked about. One is that one needs to really analyze for oneself. Like you feel sometimes that when you were having a busy calendar, when you're working, and suddenly shift happens and you don't have much on your calendar because you've chosen to come out of your full-time work, and you're figuring the tendency is to kind of fill it up with random stuff, and it could be as random as Netflix or something or the other, but it doesn't give you necessarily the right satisfaction. You feel something is missing. At that is a time when as Rajesh explained, how do you kind of introspect and figure these kind of siloed out things about, okay, what do you like in work, what do you like in passion, what do you like in social cause, etc., etc. Figure your method, or maybe sometimes you might need a coach or somebody to guide you to that process. But it's necessary to get through that so as to find your calling, and then figure the next set of next number of years. And the other was, I'm amazed that Rajesh found that in the calm of the Golden Temple. Obviously the phenomenal atmosphere there. You could find it wherever. You could find it under the tree, you could find it, but it sometimes is a trigger of maybe the environment leading you to it. That but it starts with having a clean mind, clear mind, that okay, like you're opening the door to a new thought. We are normally, our heads are so cluttered these days that it's like it's hard for a clear thought to even penetrate and give you that. So think about that. Um, one more segment I wanted to kind of address, that when we think about purpose, right? So the one common part, maybe to some extent, we've kind of been in the corporate world, and we've talked a lot. I think a lot of what we talk is kind of applicable to that kind of people, where there is a fixed age at which you retire or you choose to leave or whatever it is, and then there is a need to find the next one. There are two other kind of people who I can think of, and I'll explain both. So one is, let's say, the a professional like a doctor, lawyer, chartered accountant, somebody like that, and even say a small business owner or entrepreneur who are not constrained by time in the sense that okay, at this point I need to find my next thing because this thing is over now. It's like when you're corporate executive, that retirement means wo khatam hua, that's behind now. What next? Whereas here, somebody could potentially go on for a long time, whether it's as a doctor or a CA or a
Sure.
small business owner. But I think there is, even with that that kind of those kind of people, there is a sort of a sense that I've been doing the same thing for last 30, 40 years. And while I can perhaps continue to do so, there is something else I would like in my life. And it may not be a replacement, it could be an addition. It may be that I reduce my practice hours and add some other dimension to life so that I can get something different. So that is one kind of a constituent. And the other is a homemaker, right? I mean,
Mm.
the homemaker has, I mean, perceptibly not doesn't see that anything has changed, but
Right.
actually a lot has changed, right?
Right.
Because there was a time of life, the years flew by,
Yeah.
bringing up kids and managing the house when the spouse was, away working, and a lot of the all the different headaches of managing the domestic help and supplies and grocery and all that. The life whiz pass, and suddenly there is a sense of change that kids have gone away now. There's an emptiness of that. The spouses perhaps spending more time at home or doing, it's a lighter schedule. There's no rigor of day to day, the tiffin, this and that. And but maybe she has been in a certain space for a long time now. Can she also find an evolution to a new space
Mm.
in terms of a purpose? So there are two different ones, and you think about them both as separate kind of viewpoints that if you can address both, because they are a little different from a typical corporate executive with a kind of a best by date of sorts on where you retire and then you have to always do this. Here there is in some sense no end date, but there is a need to find the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think two things come to my mind. I think both anecdotal, perhaps too. I have the example of my wife who's going strong, in her career. But we keep talking about, I think it's that the age where you keep talking about what next, to your original question. And she keeps talking about music because her mom, she passed away a few years back, but her mom also, traditional housewife, um, my mother-in-law, and but she had so much more to life.
Mm.
You know, she was part of Lions Club. She was she did a music class to the extent that she went and learned music.
Okay.
Right? She would flaunt everybody that she's got now a certified. She got a certificate.
Mm.
She was recording her songs. There was a whole purpose to it. Was not about okay, now my children have grown up, my daughters have grown up, my grandchildren have come into, but I have my own life.
Mm.
And I will continue to do many things.
Right.
The social charitable cause through the Lions Club
Mm.
thing. So some way my wife keeps talking about her mother and says, yeah, even now while I'm working and I'm enjoying my career, but I know I want to do different things
Mm.
outside. So there is a yearning to be more. It cannot be, life cannot be unidimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah, there has to be something. You always come and say, I've come here into this world for not just being doing only one thing.
Mm.
There's another very close friend of mine who's a coach, a lady, who was working at some point of time, then made a conscious choice to say, I will now look after my children. For the next 20 years of her life, she was a housewife.
Right.
Matlab, conventional housewife, looking 100% into children, education. After 20 years, she comes to a point in her life to say, now the children are okay, they're moving out and stuff, they're taking care of themselves. I've come to this point now where I'm saying, what do I really want to contribute to this world? She joins coaching, becomes a coach, and now she's become a parenting coach because she understands the world. What her calls, Sanjay, she got picked up is saying, I find there's a lot of strain today between parents and children. That I want to bring them closer,
Okay.
and I want to say, how can I help people understand their children better, and the
Right.
children can understand parents better. So she's become a parenting coach.
Right.
Plus, now here it doesn't end that story. She's also a very good singer.
Mm.
So now she's every weekend she's like in this kind of studio recording tracks. She's putting that out. Suddenly, she said, that 20 years I don't know where I was, but I don't regret my
Yeah.
life. that was my conscious choice to say that I want to be
Right.
the best mother to my kids. Now I want to be the best person for myself.
Right.
So your self becomes very important at some stage in
Yes.
this
Yes.
50 stage.
Absolutely.
Suddenly your own focus is about who am I? I mean,
Mm.
it may seem like a very big philosophical question, but
Yeah.
who am I really in this entire game of being mother, wife, sister? There's something about me that I have not recognized still, and
True.
that back to that self-awareness piece.
True.
Uh,
No, absolutely. So I think it's a, I mean, I want to give perspective also on this that, so maybe this person that you refer to, she figured and she managed to catch up and she managed to go back to doing something for herself, whether it was coaching, whether it is singing, etc. But for a lot of homemakers, it's been a long journey of dedicating themselves to bringing up kids well and managing the house and all. And there's a certain inertia of stepping out and finding their space and doing something. And the thing to appreciate and realize is that there is a lot of years ahead, and you're not going to have kids to
yeah,
grow,
yeah,
raise anymore, and any other such constraints. So there has to be the next thing, and it might take effort. Because it doesn't come naturally, it might take effort. But there are a lot of cues, thankfully, around in our society. There are classes and there are groups and communities, and whether it's whatever it is, you could go trekking, you could go singing, you could give your time to a cause, whatever appeals to you. But it's important to fill with an interesting space, interesting thing that you like, because then only the next set of years will also become meaningful and productive. We didn't talk as much about the professional, like I said, the doctor or the CA or the small business owner, which
okay.
I think are their traits to some extent are similar in the sense that they don't have a necessity to step down and think of the next thing. They can continue, but there is a kind of fatigue of sorts of doing the same thing for a long time. Now, if they have to think about something else, is there any thoughts or any process perhaps that they can do, like, if at all?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. One is, of course, how do I change the way I'm doing things? So sometimes it could be, yes, you're the fatigue of I've been a GP, a successful GP there, and some of the GPs are really, they make a lot of
Yeah,
money and they have to build that
yeah,
trust. But I've been doing the same thing,
yeah,
and now what do I do next? And sometimes I've seen their children coming and telling them the new ways of doing things.
yeah,
The next generation brings in a
yeah,
modernization, so suddenly they are stepping back a bit, but allowing things to take move in a different direction.
right,
So
right.
that happens. Or I find a lot of them, there's somebody I know, and you probably also know, go into art of living,
Mm,
or they find some a greater meaning to this. So I've,
yeah,
I've been doing something like this, but now today there is this spiritual side of me that has
yeah,
now come about.
true, true.
For all these years it was there,
Mm,
but today now I find this very strong. So they go into that space.
right.
So people are finding that sense of there is a meaning. I think
Mm,
we are all meaning making machines,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
What is the meaning that I make of my life now at this
Mm,
stage?
mm,
There was a lot of meaning today when I still have a successful business. I knew for one person who passed away recently, older person, but till the last few years he was a doctor,
mm,
and he continued to do. There were some very loyal old patients he would still consult.
yeah.
He would be connected to them. And the other thing I feel that older people, and especially for people now, they find travel is another big relief.
Yes,
That's
absolutely,
really become,
absolutely.
Indians are
Yes,
traveling all over the
yes,
world.
true.
And when we would say that today our older parents, how will they go? There's Kesari, and they're now forming their own communities, they're
Yeah,
forming their groups,
correct.
and they're going and traveling and
Right.
exploring the world.
Yes.
My own father-in-law loves to travel. He's
Yeah,
84, and he went for an Alaska cruise with his family, but
yeah,
goes independently.
correct.
My and you said somebody losing a spouse, and my father-in-law, I mean my mother-in-law passed away. Father-in-law wants to run the marathon. He's the first one to book Standard Chartered Marathon.
Wow.
He wants to do the 10-kilometer run.
Amazing.
So life doesn't come to a stop. I think
Yeah,
that's the fundamental shift. For a lot
right.
of people, you start saying 50, 60, abhi, what was it called? One mein jana padta hai. What was that
Vanashram.
stage of farmer?
Yeah.
You started
One
saying my
pravesh,
life is
one
now has to
pravesh.
come to a, here you said my life is now, it suddenly opens up a whole set of new things that were not open to me. I was
Right,
not
right,
even looking there.
right, right.
So that's that excitement. You've
Yeah,
seen this viral video, Shabana Azmi doing that 75 year. It's all over on
yeah, yeah,
Instagram.
yeah. I've seen that.
Now you look at your role models and you say, she's achieved, she's a great
Yeah, right.
actress, she's got national honors, but look at her dancing and
Yeah,
enjoying.
right,
And
right,
she
right.
went to a trip, I think, to Iceland or something. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
was following that
yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw
today.
that.
So she does, as a prelude to her 75th, she goes with her girlfriends. All of them go
Right,
for a trip to Iceland.
right, right.
She comes back and she throws this party with her close people.
Yeah,
And that becomes appealing to you कि
absolutely.
ये तो लगता नहीं है 75 का. Who wants to
Yeah,
look, who wants to, you don't even want to feel like
correct,
you are an old
correct,
person.
correct,
You want to
correct.
feel
Exactly.
that you're vibrant, you have that energy.
Absolutely,
And that is what people, even for a
absolutely.
CA or a doctor who's saying, I want something that energizes me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And whatever form in that way, I can energize my life.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. I would just add one dimension, and this is coming out of speaking to a lot of friends who are in that, either professionals or small businesses, business owners, where while they can potentially go on for long, right? Uh, because it's a practice of a medical practice or a business, there is a need to also kind of be conscious about succession, right?
Hmm.
So if you have, say, supposing you're a doctor and somebody is joining, whether it's your child or it's another doctor who comes into the fray with you in your practice, whatever it may be, if there's a proper succession, because you set up infrastructure, maybe you set up a clinic, maybe you set up a hospital, you have employees working for you, and you think you can go on, but visualize that if you had to slow down or God forbid something happens, how is this going to run? And the same is true with a small business owner, that one, like, because you don't perhaps know what else to do, you keep going. But if if there was a challenge, then how is the business going to run? And there's liability, maybe you have infrastructure, maybe you have a
Yeah.
cash credit facility with your bank. Is your family equipped to take care of things in case emergency happens or something? So while there is this whole drive to keep going for as long that
Hmm.
I'm going to
Enjoy
go
life.
with my work
Yeah.
shoes on and all, this is nice and nothing wrong with it, but think about the aspect of succession and stuff like that as well. And in terms of planning, I mean, I would say that alongside whatever you're doing, and I'm assuming that you're going ahead, whether it's your medical practice or a chartered accountant or a small business owner, it is not happening at compromise. Now, sometimes your mental faculties go down. Maybe you're not as agile. If you're a surgeon, your hands and everything should be working fine. It's
Hmm.
not about just having this thing that I'm not going to give up, but make sure that there is no compromise. But assuming all that, can you in parallel find time to doing something else in life? Find an avenue to explore. Like I have some doctor friends who, for last several years, have created a music group and perform on stage
Yeah.
while being active
Rock on.
doctors. Yeah. So it's like it's their went to doing something different, motivation, and taking a break from the routine of being a medical practitioner, etc., and of course giving back to people in terms of entertainment, etc. So I think finding that next thing or next purpose, whether after something or side by side an activity, might be worth uh, dwelling on and finding your own calling. So it's been a really interesting discussion, Rajesh. I mean, we don't know where time
Yeah.
flew because the conversation was very interesting. I learned a whole lot of things in just your sharing, and I mean, it's good inputs for me. So thank you so much. But love to see if you have any final thoughts on the subject for our listeners and viewers in terms of closing thoughts on the subject. Anything?
No, thank you for inviting me, Sanjay. And this is a subject that it's there always like a commentary going on. You're talking about
Yeah,
it with your close people. But today to have this kind of detailed exploration about this subject and really opened up my own mind to many things that are going on. That even the last bit that you said very quickly about um, looking after what happens, this whole legacy piece. I know,
yeah,
for instance, another person who's now helping older people make a will.
mm,
We in our
yeah.
country we don't even have this concept, and
True.
all of our we have many cases of people having left their fortunes withering now. Things
Yeah.
are not defined. People are running rounds trying to get their money
Right.
back and
Right.
rightful money back. So I know one person, a lady, successful executive. Now she started a company to help people how to make your own will.
Right.
And so, there's so many things that you now look up
Yes.
to say technology. We are due to scams happening. We don't know
Mm.
how to manage. Older people don't know how to manage their
Correct.
finances well. So there are so many ways where interventions can be done to make your life easier, smoother as you start going into your sunset years.
Yeah.
You're right. You rightly pointed out there could be challenges
Mm.
also,
Mm.
and not the good part is that you're zest for life and you want to do things, but there's also a harsh reality that health is another big
Yeah.
important thing. There's people are investing in health insurance, so
Yeah.
one can even offer a lot of things to this cohort
Mm.
so that you know that as you're moving towards a certain inevitable destination,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
and we live longer, but there are ways in which we can make this whole journey far more fulfilling through our purpose, but also more smoother and more joyous.
Yes.
Uh, so that's what I really want to say.
Fantastic. Those super closing thoughts, and with that, we come to an end on this episode, and look forward to you seeing you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.